Chapter 2 Overview of Algerian Legislation. Definitions. Legislation originates from two Latin terms, legis and latum. Legis signifies law, while latum denotes to make. Historically, the term legislation referred to the authority granted to specific institutions for the establishment of necessary rules. In modern situations, it often refers to the collection of rules and regulations in effect inside a specific state. As per the Cambridge Dictionary, legislation refers to a law or collection of laws proposed by a government and formally approved by a parliament. 2, 3, 4. 2.1 Legislation versus law. Legislation is an important concept that leads to laws, but laws can also come from other sources. Legislation is a set of necessary regulations given to Parliament to establish guidelines for social functioning. It becomes law after being approved by Parliament or other authorized institutions such as government bodies, municipal councils, or specified groups. While still known as legislation, this usually refers to the specifics, terminology, and clauses of the law. In legal terms, law refers to regulations approved by Parliament, judicial interpretations, or customary practices. However, law can also be derived from scientific concepts or logical reasoning. Examples include Archimedes' law of the lever, Boyle's law of chemistry, Newton's laws of physics, and mathematical principles. Moral laws like Moses' law, as well as codes of chivalry and etiquette, all contribute to the concept of law. 29. 2.2 Legislation in Algeria. The modified Constitution of 1996, enacted in 2016, established a new structure for legislative authority. This reorganization involved the creation of a second parliamentary chamber, which was new in the history of the legislative institution. Furthermore, this constitution granted legislative powers to the President of the Republic, entrusting them with tasks usually reserved for Parliament, while also distinguishing dual legislative responsibilities between the legislative and executive institutions. 13. The Algerian constitution divides the legislative body into two chambers, the National People's Assembly and the Council of the Nation. 30.31. 2.3 Institutions 2.3.1. Executive Institutions 2.3.1.1. The President of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. The responsibilities of the President of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria cover a range of tasks. As the primary executive authority, the President is tasked with implementing and upholding laws established by the legislative body, as well as overseeing the efficient functioning of government operations. In addition to that, the President of the Republic appoints individuals to various roles and responsibilities, especially in the following functions and tasks specified in the Constitution: civil and military functions in the state, appointments made in the Council of Ministers upon the proposal of the Prime Minister or the head of government, as appropriate, the President of the Supreme Court, President of the Council of State, Secretary General of the Government. Governor of the Central Bank of Algeria. Judges, security officials, governors, managers of regulatory authorities. 33.40. 14. 2.3.1.2. The government. A government is the system of authority and control within a country or community. Article 105 of the 2020 Constitutional Amendment states that after the election of the President of the Republic, the President appoints a Prime Minister and entrusts him with the building of a government and developing a plan of action to carry out the presidential program, which he delivers to the Council of Ministers. If the Prime Minister does not reach an agreement within 30 days, the President appoints a new Prime Minister and tasks him with forming the government. 41.42. A. The Prime Minister. The Prime Minister rules over the Council of Ministers and is responsible for the smooth running of public administration as well as the distribution of authorities among government members. Article 112, paragraph 4 of the 2020 Constitution stipulates that the Prime Minister chairs the Council of Ministers. According to the Constitution, the President appoints government members on the recommendation of the Prime Minister, depending on the circumstances. Algeria's constitution does not specify a minimum or maximum number of ministries. Thus, the Prime Minister has the authority to organize the government team. Following the President's appointment of government members, the Prime Minister, by an executive order, delineates the powers of each minister within the government team, with the consent of those who share the work among them, and regulates their competencies to avoid jurisdictional conflicts. 41.42. In other words, the Prime Minister has different powers granted to him by various articles of the Constitution, including directing, coordinating, and overseeing government operations, allocating authority among government members while adhering to constitutional constraints, implementing laws and regulations, chairing government gatherings. 15. Signing executive orders, appointing individuals to civil service jobs that are not under the President's jurisdiction or that the President has delegated to him. Ensure the seamless operation of public administration and facilities. 41.43. B. Composition of the current government of Algeria: Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of the Interior, Local Authorities, Minister of Justice, Keeper of the Seals, Minister of Finance, Minister of Energy and Mines, Minister of Mujahideen and Rights Holders, Minister of Religious Affairs, and Wax, Minister of National Education, Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research, Minister of Vocational Education and Training, Minister of Culture, and the Arts, Minister of Youth and Sports, Minister of Digitization and Statistics, Minister of Post and Telecommunications, Minister of National Solidarity, Family and Status of Women. 16. Minister of Industry and Pharmaceutical Production, Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Minister of Housing, Minister of Trade and Export, Promotion, Minister of Communication, Minister of Public Works and Basic Infrastructure, Minister of Hydraulics, Minister of Transport, Minister of Tourism and Handicrafts, Minister of Health, Minister of Labour, Employment and Social Security, Minister for Relations with Parliament, Minister of the Environment and Renewable Energies, Minister of Fisheries and Fish Production, Minister of Knowledge Economy and Start-up, Secretary General of the Government. 44. 2.3.1.3. The governor, at the level of the province, represents both centralization and decentralization, meaning the state. This representation entails broad powers as an executive body of the province. Moreover, the legislator has entrusted the governor with tasks that are considered the primary jurisdiction of local authorities. Consequently, the governor exercises 17. Control over all powers in the province, overseeing the implementation of decisions made by the Provincial People's Assembly and serving, while also representing the province. 45.46. 2.3.2. Legislative institutions. 2.3.2.1. The Constitutional Council. The Constitutional Council acts within the framework of the Constitution enacted on March 6, 2016, which defines its composition, powers, jurisdiction, the entities permitted to bring problems before it, and the consequences of its decisions. Additional regulations expand its jurisdiction and provide procedural rules. These comprise the electoral system's fundamental law and the regulatory framework that governs its operational procedures, which were published in Official Journal No. 29 on May 11, 2016. Furthermore, the Constitutional Council's administrative structure is defined by two documents: a presidential decree outlining the organization's regulations and the employment status of specific staff members, and a decision outlining the administrative services internal organization within the Constitutional Council. 34/35. Opinion N Degree 01/16 of the 28th of January 2016. Approved that the constitutionality of certain amendments to the Constitution and the addition of new articles are deemed acceptable as long as they align with human rights and freedoms and do not contravene the general principles of Algerian society. These modifications encompass various aspects, such as penalties for cruel treatment, enhancing the business environment, market regulation, consumer protection, prevention of monopolies, academic freedom, scientific research, peaceful demonstrations, press freedom, and party rights. These changes aim to uphold freedom of expression, foster pluralistic democracy, ensure societal coexistence, and respect the dignity of individuals. 36. The constitutional legislator has specified simple requirements and procedures to allow litigants to exercise their constitutional rights in constitutional challenges. By exercising this novel constitutional power in court, litigants can help to rid the national legislative framework of measures that violate constitutional rights and freedoms. Furthermore, people obtain the 18. Authority to dispute the constitutionality of laws passed by their representatives in Parliament. This emphasizes the importance of the constitutional revision introduced by Article 188, which prioritizes the protection of rights and freedoms and makes it easier to execute this new mechanism. 36-33. 2.3.2.2 The Parliament. According to the electoral regulations in Algeria, individuals who are at least 25 years old possess full civil and political rights, with exceptions for convicted felons, and have fulfilled their military service obligations or been exempted are eligible to stand for election. However, specific categories of civil servants are ineligible to run for office until 1 year after leaving their positions. Article 91 of the 2016 electoral legislation specifies these categories as including judges, members of the armed forces, security forces, governors, high-ranking administrative and municipal officials, ambassadors, and consuls general. In the Algerian electoral system, candidates cannot run for individual seats. Instead, they must be part of a political party or an independent list. Article 94 of the 2016 electoral law outlines 3 criteria for accepting a list to contest elections in a particular district. Accepted are party lists or party coalitions that secured more than 4% of the votes in the district in the previous legislative election, as well as political parties with a minimum of 10 parliamentarians in the district. New political parties and independent lists must gather 250 signatures per seat from district voters, with the signature requirement reduced to 200 for independent and party lists representing overseas constituencies. 54. A. Our National People's Assembly. The members of the National Popular Assembly are elected by direct and secret votes. The initiative of the laws belongs jointly to the Prime Minister and to the deputies. The National Assembly is elected for a 5-year period. The President of the Republic can decide, after consultation with the Chairman of the National Assembly, the Chairman. 19. Of the Council of the Nation, Senate, and the Prime Minister, to dissolve the National Assembly or anticipate legislative elections. The law is promulgated by the President of the Republic within 30 days from the date of its handing over. Deputies benefit from parliamentary privilege during their mandate. They cannot be the subject of legal proceedings, arrest, or, in general, to any civil proceeding, penal action or pressure because of the opinions that they express, the remarks which they made or the votes that have made in the exercise of their function. 37. BR Council of the Nation. Algerian Parliament Second Chamber is known as the Council of the Nation. Article 98 of the Constitution was established for the first time on November 28, 1996. Members of the Senate are elected in secret by a 2/3 majority of municipal elected officials and departmental assemblies. The President of the Republic appoints 1/3 of the senators from among national celebrities with expertise in science, culture, professional, economics, and social issues. Senators make up no more than half of the members of the National Popular Assembly, APN. Their mandate is set at 6 years. Half of the members are elected every 3 years. Senators enjoy parliamentary immunity throughout their tenure, shielding them from legal proceedings, arrests, or any form of civil or penal actions due to their expressed opinions, statements, or voting activities carried out in the performance of their duties. 37. 2.3.2.3 The Provincial People's Assembly. It is a locally elected council and serves as a deliberative body for the province. It represents the central base, relying on elections as a means to achieve the independence of local. 20. Governance, thereby fostering genuine democracy. Consequently, the Provincial People's Assembly holds a significant position in the lives of citizens and the state, due to the broad powers granted to it by Law No. 78 to 96 regarding provincial administration. The authority of the Provincial People's Assembly is manifested through deliberation and discussion on matters falling within its jurisdiction as stipulated by laws and regulations. Additionally, the Provincial People's Assembly exercises several powers, including but not limited to public health and protection of children and individuals with special needs, addressing issues raised by the province upon the proposal of 1/3 of its members, its president, or the governor, establishing a database in each province to collect all economic, social, and environmental studies and statistics related to the province, facilitating cooperation and communication between economic actors, training and research institutions, and local administrations to foster innovation in economic sectors, while also enhancing consultation with economic actors to ensure a conducive environment for investment. Overseeing the implementation of health prevention measures, undertaking health equipment projects that exceed local capabilities, and ensuring the implementation of health measures by municipalities. 47. 2.3.2.4 The role of the governor within the Provincial People's Assembly. A. The implementation of the decisions of the Provincial People's Assembly by the governor. The Algerian legislator has entrusted the task of implementing and disseminating the decisions of the Provincial People's Assembly to the governor, as stated in Article 111 of Law 10-11 concerning the province. The governor ensures the dissemination and implementation of the decisions of the Provincial People's Assembly. However, the governor not only 21. Disseminates and implements the decisions of the Assembly, but also participates in preparing its agenda and attends its sessions, in addition to implementing the Council's resolutions. B. Notification of the Provincial People's Assembly. In addition to implementing the decisions of the Assembly, the governor informs the Provincial People's Assembly by reviewing the status of the decisions and significant developments. Additionally, the governor is required to provide an annual report to the Assembly. 45-46. 2.3.2.5 The Municipal People's Council. The people are free to choose their representatives, with the boundaries of popular representation defined by the Constitution and electoral law. As the management of local affairs constitutes one of their daily concerns, the Algerian legislature, as emphasized in Municipal Law 11-10, underscores the role of the Municipal People's Council in consolidating local democracy. This council serves as a framework for democratic expression, representing the grassroots and providing a platform for citizen participation in decision-making. Furthermore, Law 01-12 on the management of public affairs under the electoral system ensures pluralism within the Municipal People's Council. 48. 2.3.2.6 The role of the mayor as the head of the executive body of the Municipal People's Council. The president of the Municipal People's Council assumes the presidency of the council, convening and presenting matters within its jurisdiction, and is responsible for drafting the agenda for council sessions. Additionally, the law grants the president of the Municipal People's Council the authority to remove any non-elected individual who disrupts the smooth conduct of the session. The president attends and organizes the sessions, determining the dates and agendas of the sessions after consultation with the executive body. 22. Furthermore, another task undertaken is the suspension and implementation of discussions, as stipulated in Article 30 of the Municipal Law, which states, discussions, except those concerning public order and disciplinary cases, are suspended under the supervision of the President of the Municipal Council in designated areas for notices and public information, and are published through any other means of communication within 808 days following their entry into force, in accordance with the provisions of this law. 49. 2.4 Adoption of the law. 2.4.1 The Constitution. The supreme law in Algeria is commonly known as a constitution. Constitutions outline the fundamental principles of a state, the organization and functions of government, and the basic rights of citizens in a supreme law that cannot be unilaterally altered by regular legislative measures. The specifics and character of a given constitution, as well as its relationship with the broader legal and political framework, vary significantly among nations, with no universally agreed upon definition. However, any widely accepted definition of a constitution would likely incorporate the following key features. They are required for all individuals in the state, including standard legislative bodies. They address the construction and operation of government institutions, political ideology, and citizen rights. Their legitimacy stems from strong public backing. They are more difficult to amend than regular laws, generally necessitating a two-thirds majority vote or referendum. At the very least, they follow internationally accepted democratic criteria, which include concepts of representation and human rights. 32. 23. A. The functions of a constitution. Constitutions serve an important role in determining the boundaries of the political community. These limits include both physical features, such as a state's geographic borders and territorial claims, as well as personal dimensions, such as citizenship definition. Constitutions also express the essence and authority of the political society by establishing fundamental principles and defining the site of sovereignty. For example, Algeria's constitution declares it a people's democratic republic, emphasizing its unity and indivisibility. Constitutions are used to express a nation's identity and principles. They may establish national symbols such as flags and anthems and make statements about the country's ideals, history, and identity. Constitutions define citizens' rights and obligations, sometimes typically including a declaration of fundamental rights essential for an open and democratic society. Constitutions establish and control the community's political institutions by specifying their composition, powers, functions, and interrelations. Constitutions typically establish the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. Constitutions can also assign or divide power to different levels of government or sub-state groups. Many constitutions use federal, quasi-federal, or decentralized structures to allocate power to provinces, regions, or other sub-state communities. Constitutions may specify the state's official religious identity and outline the relationship between sacred and secular authorities, especially in societies where religious and national identities are inextricably linked, or where religious law has traditionally governed personal status matters or citizen dispute resolution. Finally, constitutions may commit states to certain social, economic, or developmental goals, whether through judicially enforced socio-economic rights, politically binding directive principles, or other forms of commitment or intention. 32, 33. 24. B. Constitutional amendment in Algeria. 1. Establishment of the 1963 Constitution, 74 articles. The Algerian people approved the first Algerian state's constitution in a referendum on the 8th September 1963. It became evident that this initial constitution was drafted and issued shortly after Algeria gained independence, making it the first constitution to lay the foundation for the birth of the modern Algerian state. 2. Constitutional amendment of 1963 and the birth of the 1976 Constitution, 198 articles. The referendum on November 18, 1976, resulted in a constitution distinguished by new orientations, principles, and different components that lay the foundation for a socialist political system. 3. The 1989 revision of the 1976 Constitution and the birth of a new constitution. Despite the aura surrounding the 1976 Constitution, it underwent a significant constitutional reform, at least in terms of removing the communist system that had been in Algeria since independence and replacing it with a multi-party political system. 4. The 1989 Constitution Amendment and the formation of the 1996 Constitution. Despite its significance, the 1989 Constitution was amended in a public election held on November 28, 1996. The arguments for this amendment were based on the Constitution's shortcomings as a result of the failed experiment with political party pluralism. According to the authorities, it did not meet their expectations and desired goals. As a result, there was a need to strengthen the executive authority and reconcentrate it in the hands of the president, controlling and defining the practices and purposes of those exercising their political rights in order to avoid potentially dangerous mistakes. 25. 5. The Constitutional Amendment of 2016. In February 2016, Algeria's parliament approved a number of constitutional amendments. Initially inspired by mass demonstrations in 2011, the government committed to constitutional revision, with the goal of strengthening Algeria's democratic ideals and the framework that protects fundamental rights. Among the improvements, the 2016 amendments reintroduced the presidency's two-term limit, established an autonomous electoral oversight body, and expanded on existing safeguards for freedom of assembly and media speech. Furthermore, the 2016 amendments established a National Council for Human Rights to replace the National Consultative Commission for the Promotion and Protection of Human Rights, CNCPPDH, which was entrusted with advocating, supervising, and maintaining human rights throughout the country. 51. 6. The Constitutional Amendment of 2020. The Constitutional Amendment of 2020 is deemed necessary due to the critical circumstances facing the Algerian state politically, whether related to external or internal influences and their ramifications across various levels and domains. Perhaps the most significant aspect addressed by the recent constitutional amendment is the establishment of a specialized section concerning the mechanism of constitutional oversight, achieved through the creation of the Constitutional Court as a body responsible for upholding and enforcing the Constitution as a symbol of credibility and legitimacy domestically and internationally. However, the fulfillment of its role will only come with the consolidation of guarantees for its independence. 56. 2.4.2 The law in Algeria. A proposal stage. This stage involves the submission of a legislative proposal either by the National People's Assembly or the government. It addresses issues relevant to individuals or the state that require legal regulation. Article 119 of the Constitution grants both the Prime Minister and 26 members of the National People's Assembly the right to propose laws. Legislative proposals submitted by deputies, at least 20 deputies, are referred to as legislative proposals, while those submitted by the government are called draft laws. The main difference between them is that a legislative proposal is sent to the Assembly's Proposals Committee to formulate it legally because most Assembly members lack legal drafting expertise, whereas a draft law submitted by the Executive Authority is sent directly to the Assembly after receiving the State Council's opinion. 52. B. House of Representatives Voting and Study Stage. Article 58 of the Internal Rules of the People's National Assembly specifies that deliberations within the Assembly, irrespective of deputy attendance, are ineligible for voting unless a majority of deputies are present. Hence, voting only proceeds within the People's National Assembly when a majority of deputies attend, and the endorsement of a proposal or bill necessitates an outright majority of present members. If a quorum is not met, a subsequent session is convened within a time frame ranging from a minimum of 6 hours to a maximum of 12 hours, wherein the voting outcome remains valid regardless of attendee count. Following the People's National Assembly's vote on a text, it must be transmitted to the President of the Council of the Nation within a 10-day period, per the stipulations of Article 120, Paragraph 3 of the Constitution. The Council of the Nation deliberates on the text endorsed by the People's National Assembly, and sanctions it with a majority of no less than 3/4 of its members. Article 59 of the Assembly's internal regulations articulates that deliberations within the Council of the Nation cannot culminate in approval unless at least 3/4 of its members are present, irrespective of attendance numbers. In cases of quorum deficiency, the Bureau of the Council of the Nation, in collaboration with the government, arranges a subsequent session. 55. 27. C. Discussion and issuance stage. The Specialized Committee presents its report, along with the opinion of the Legislative and Legal Affairs Committee, for discussion and voting by the Assembly. If approved, the proposal is then sent to the Council of the Nation for voting, requiring a majority of 3/4 of its members. Art. 120 of the Constitution. After Parliament's approval of the proposal, the text is sent to the President of the Republic for approval. However, the law does not become effective until it is issued. Issuance entails the President issuing an order to the executive authorities to implement the law, as the executive authority is independent of the legislative authority, which does not have the right to issue orders to the executive authorities. 52. D. Publication stage. Following these stages, the law must undergo the publication stage to become effective. Publication is necessary to make the law enforceable against all individuals and is achieved by publishing it in the official journal. Once published, knowledge of the law is presumed, even for those who have not read it. This matter is settled by a general rule outlined in Article 4 of the Civil Code. Laws apply in the territory of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria from the day of their publication in the official journal. The law becomes effective in the capital, Algiers, after 1 full day from the date of publication, and in other areas within each district's jurisdiction, after 1 full day from the date of arrival of the official journal at the district headquarters, which is confirmed by the district seal stamped on the journal. 52. 2.4.3 Types of law in Algeria. A. Illegal framework. The regulations dictating the entitlements and obligations of governments, corporations, and individuals collectively form a legal structure or legal framework. The entities engaged in crafting these regulations and the documents employed to delineate them vary from one nation to another. In Algeria, the legal framework encompasses texts issued by both chambers of 28. Parliament, namely the People's National Assembly, APN, and the Council of Nation, CN. 53, 57. B. The executive orders. In instances where the People's National Assembly is vacant or during parliamentary recesses, the President of the Republic has the authority to enact legislation through executive orders. These written texts must be presented to both parliamentary chambers for approval during their subsequent sessions. Decisions regarding executive orders are made by the Council of Ministers. 53. See regulatory provisions. Regulatory provisions cover matters not exclusively reserved for legislation, falling under the regulatory jurisdiction of the President of the Republic. Regulatory provisions cover matters not exclusively reserved for legislation, falling under the regulatory jurisdiction of the President of the Republic. The term regulatory provision encompasses all existing laws, regulations, ordinances, directives, orders, decrees, policy guidelines, and standards set forth by the South African government and any authorized body. These provisions pertain to, or have an impact on, your interaction with the website and/or utilization of its services. 53, 58. D. Presidential and executive decrees. Presidential decrees, signed by the President of the Republic, and executive decrees, signed by the Prime Minister, are enforceable documents either of a general or individual nature. E. Administrative decisions. Administrative decisions, also known as bylaws, are enforceable rulings issued by one or more ministers or other administrative authorities, such as provinces, municipalities, or public administrative institutions empowered to do so. 53. 29.